And the accumulated amount is now trapping as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world. We have to act.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a wonderful clip. I want to go right to James. Lindsay, our last segment, did a great job overviewing the World Economic Forum, and now we'll go a little bit deeper with our friend James Lindsay. He's got a new book out, The Marxification of Education. Follow him on Twitter, Conceptual James, and then his big website is newdiscourses.com. Engage in all those different places. James, great to talk to you again, brother.
Hey, yeah, wasn't that great with Al Gore? I mean, I didn't know that the sea level was rising or the oceans are boiling, but that sounds extraordinarily scary, and I'm glad he's brought attention to that issue.
I live in San Diego. I would have known. I was there the other day. They're definitely not boiling at all. But this is such a perfect segue, because what do we need to know about these people? What do we need to know about the psychology or the personalities or the worldview of these people? Why do they love this stuff so much?
Power. Honestly, having read an obscene amount of their literature, watched an obscene number of times where they sit on a stage like that, either very smugly and calm and collected like they're going to rule the world, or very mad like Al Gore because it looks like maybe they're not going to now because nobody trusts them and they're getting very scared and frustrated. I think that there's this kind of psychological profile of people who want power and control, but they also want to be seen kind of as a messiah figure. They're the ones who are going to save us from ourselves because they're the ultimate good expert leader type person who's going to walk humanity out of its own stupid foibles. Look how dumb we all are. We're just doing things like driving our cars and causing the oceans to boil and whatever else. And they know so much better than us, and they're going to save us from ourselves. And it just so happens that they also get to be in charge to make sure to do so.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Let me ask one quick question on that, and I always sidebar with you, but help me understand this. So Rousseau believed that people were born good. Is that a true statement, first of all?
Yes.
Okay, so if he believed people were born good, and a lot of these progressives have that worldview, how does that reconcile with the fact that people are stupid idiots who drive cars and boil the oceans? Right? If
really
people
simple.
are good, yeah.
Well, most people aren't aware, right? They have good impulses, but they aren't aware. They don't have what the Greeks would have called nous or mind. They don't have a kind of glimpse of the divine mind. They haven't reached a higher level of consciousness. They operate under false consciousness. So while they tend to be good, they misuse their goodness by directing it toward things that are evil. Whereas, on the other hand, when you become enlightened, you can use things that seem tyrannical or bad and direct them toward things that are good. This is what Hegel called the cunning of reason, sort of, is that people do bad things through their intellect, but it comes out good because history is to progress toward a particular end. And of course, Hegel derived many of his ideas from Rousseau. And so this sounds really weird and abstruse, and we don't have to get too sidebar-y, but this is ultimately a disposition that we used to call Gnosticism. It is that there are certain people who are the enlightened elect. Those people understand the world better than everybody else, and therefore they have awakened their minds, whereas everyone else is stuck in a false consciousness. So they have to rule and lead us. And we just saw Al Gore describe things that are not happening as though they're happening as justification for why he should be that person.
Yeah, so good, perfect. I knew you'd have an answer to bridge that. I had that disconnect, but I knew there was some way that they went from Rousseau to the stage of the World Economic Forum. So your book is about the Marxification of Education. Marxism has become a very scary word, and it means a lot of things now to a lot of people or whatever. Are these people Marxists, something different? How do you describe their worldview?
Yes. So what's happened, and a lot of people don't understand this, and honestly, if I might toot my own horn for half a second, I think it's my most valuable contribution to the conversation so far. What's happened is that through the 1960s, but also, even older, through the Fabians and the Fabian socialism, all this, there was this realization that the Marxists weren't getting anywhere until they tied themselves to big money. And then when we have the era of the 1960s, the neo-Marxist turn, you have them writers writing down, there's something wrong here. Capitalism is working. It makes people have a good life. What are we going to do? It's made the working class complacent and conservative and content. That's not good. And so what they realized was not just that they have to do this march through the institutions, but in fact, if you read, say, One Dimensional Man by Herbert Marcuse from the 1960s, the second chapter is extremely clear on this. We need to see capitalism and socialism as kind of dialectical pairs that can be mixed together into a new kind of program that's going to do, all the things we need it to do. It's going to produce like capitalism, but it's going to redistribute like socialism. Mm. And they pioneered that model in China. The man that followed Mao Zedong, named Deng Xiaoping, pioneered the model. His famous line was, "I don't care if the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice." So he doesn't care if the economy has a market or if it's command, as long as it works, as long as it makes the regime and the party stay in power. And we just heard Klaus Schwab say the same thing at the World Economic Forum interview that he did, where he said that there's state capitalism, and then it has all these advantages. And then there is, on the other hand, shareholder capitalism, which has certain advantages, but also has problems. But he proposes a different model called a stakeholder capitalism. And stakeholder capitalism is, now you have this council of experts. Russian word for council is Soviet. We'll just point that out. Council of experts who are going to decide for us how business is going to be done, how the governments are going to make a decision through what they call a public-private partnership, aka fascism. And so what you see is that the corporate sector, which is shareholder capitalism, and the command Marxist sector, which is state capitalism, have fused into a new program called stakeholder capitalism, which is in fact their combination. And that's why people can't see this as Marxism, because it's using corporations to achieve what governments in the West can't do because of things like the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, bummer. This reminds me of Karl Marx himself, though. Karl Marx was this massive freeloader on his family, and he was just like, couldn't wait for family members to die so he could get some inheritance. And all of his money came from Engels, whose dad owned a company that he took over and gave all the money to Marx to continue on with his Marxist thing. So Karl Marx himself was a fusion of his of capitalism and Marxism. Fascinating.
Communism has always been a rich man's game, right? Always been a rich man's game.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip about the World Economic Forum. Super important to understand what's going on. But the thing is, when you learn about this stuff, I don't know, but my anxiety goes up. It's like, global digital IDs, and like we're not allowed to eat meat anymore. We're going to eat bugs. Like, what are you talking about? So I get very anxious. So that's why I started this podcast. It's called Politics by Faith. So what we do is we take the story of the day, we break it down, we lament the brokenness, but then we provide some historical perspective and some biblical peace to understand that there's nothing new under the sun. And then what we can do to get through this, even more than get through it, what we can do to win. So that's what the podcast is all about. You can give it a download. It's free, of course, wherever you listen to your podcast. Politics by Faith. And you can watch, you can feel the anxiety wash away.